It was supposed to be just another late shift for Officer Megan Hartley. The streets were quiet, the skies overcast, and the department radio buzzed with routine dispatches. She cruised through the suburban stretch of Eastmont, a town not known for excitement, but known for order. At exactly 10:42 p.m., her radar lit up. A dark SUV was clocked doing 12 over the posted limit on Ridgeway Avenue. Without hesitation, Megan flipped on her lights. The vehicle complied immediately, signaling right and pulling to the shoulder. She approached cautiously, her flashlight beam cutting through the tinted window. "License and registration," she said sharply as the window rolled down. The driver, a tall black man with salt and pepper hair and a composed expression, calmly handed over the documents without a word. Megan didn't even glance at the name. Her adrenaline was high for reasons she couldn't name. "Do you know why I pulled you over?" she asked. "I believe I was a bit over the limit," the man replied. His voice was measured. Megan didn't like the calm tone. It made her feel challenged. Authority was everything in a stop. She told him to keep his hands where she could see them. Then, just as she turned to run his plates, she froze. Something in her gut tightened. His face. There was something familiar about it. But before her instincts could catch up, she heard the click of a seatbelt unbuckling. "Sir, stay in the vehicle," she barked. "I'm just out of the car. Now." Her hand moved faster than her judgment. The next moment would haunt her forever. The man stepped out slowly, hands clearly visible, palms forward. But Megan had already drawn her baton. Her nerves were too high, her pride too stubborn to let go. He didn't resist. He barely had time to speak. Without warning, she struck him across the shoulder. A loud crack split the quiet night as he stumbled, catching himself on the hood of the SUV. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he said sharply, eyes wide with disbelief. Megan raised the baton again, but then froze. The light from the street lamp hit his face just right this time. And that's when it hit her. Deputy Chief Marcus Lane. Her boss. Her commanding officer. Her mind went blank. She'd seen him dozens of times at department briefings, in the hallway, even in passing just yesterday. How had she not recognized him? "Sir, I didn't realize," he stared at her, holding his shoulder. "You didn't realize," he said, voice low with restrained disbelief. "You didn't even read the ID, did you?" She stood there, frozen, baton still in hand. A cruiser pulled up behind them. "Back up." Two more officers stepped out. Their flashlights hit Marcus's face, and the expressions on their faces shifted immediately. "Deputy Chief?" one of them asked, stunned. Marcus didn't answer. He just looked at Megan, not with anger, but with a cold kind of disappointment that burned more than shouting ever could. "You better call the captain," he said. "Right now." The silence was unbearable. Megan's heartbeat thundered in her ears as her fellow officers stood frozen in disbelief. She lowered the baton slowly, her hand trembling. Her thoughts scrambled for anything that could explain away the mess she'd just made. "Captain Reynolds, this is Unit 47, one of the backup officers finally said into the radio. "We've had an incident. You need to respond to Ridgeway and Mercer. It involves the deputy chief." Megan didn't move. Couldn't. Deputy Chief Lane stood upright now, brushing dust off his jacket, his breathing steady but deliberate. He didn't say a word as he walked to the rear of his SUV and leaned against it. He didn't look at her again. 10 minutes later, Captain Reynolds' unmarked car pulled up fast and quiet. The door slammed before the engine even finished humming. He stormed over. "What happened?" The officer who had called it in gestured toward Megan without saying a word. The captain turned to her. "Officer Hartley," he said, voice tight. "Please explain." I thought he was being non-compliant," she stammered. He unbuckled. I didn't recognize him at first. He didn't say who he was. You didn't recognize your own deputy chief. Reynolds interrupted, voice rising. You hit him, Megan. Are you telling me you didn't even verify ID before escalating? She opened her mouth, but no words came. Lane spoke up from behind them. Captain, he said calmly, I want bodycam footage pulled immediately. I also want internal affairs looped in by morning. Reynolds nodded solemnly. Lane walked past Megan without a glance. As he reached his vehicle door, he stopped and said quietly, we've worked too hard to build something better. And you just dragged us backward. Then he got in and drove away. Megan stood motionless as the wind picked up. Her entire career, and reputation, were collapsing in real time. The next morning, Internal Affairs was already combing through the footage. Word had spread fast, not through the press, but through the department. Whispers in locker rooms. Closed-door conversations in the hallways. Eyes following Megan everywhere she went. She was placed on administrative leave before noon. The footage wasn't ambiguous. The stop was calm. The driver compliant. The escalation. Unprovoked. No raised voice. No threat. No resistance. Megan watched the video alone in a quiet room, her supervisor seated silently behind her. She flinched when she saw herself raise the baton. The sound of it striking Deputy Chief Lane made her sick. She had looked so certain. So in control. But now she saw what everyone else would, not a confident officer, but someone who lost control. She buried her face in her hands. I didn't mean to do it like that, she whispered. Intent doesn't always matter, Hartley, her supervisor replied. Especially when you wear this badge. Meanwhile, Lane remained quiet. He hadn't made a single public comment. No press release. No statement to the rank and file. That made everyone more nervous. By sunset, city officials were already circling. The mayor had requested a briefing. And Deputy Chief Marcus Lane. He was preparing for a very different kind of conversation. One that wouldn't happen behind closed doors. City Hall buzzed with tension. Reporters swarmed the steps, but there were no microphones, no podiums, not yet. Behind a thick oak door on the fourth floor, a closed meeting had been called. No cameras. No recordings. Only key figures allowed. Deputy Chief Marcus Lane sat at the end of the long conference table, flanked by the mayor, the police commissioner, the city attorney, and a few tight-lipped council members. Across from him sat Captain Reynolds and the head of Internal Affairs. Everyone else was quiet. Marcus set a folder on the table and slid it forward. That's the transcript from the bodycam footage, time-stamped and verified. It lines up exactly with the video. No edits. No room for misinterpretation. The commissioner looked at it grimly, then glanced at the mayor. She never even said my name, Lane continued. Never asked a question. Just reacted. She claims she didn't recognize you, Reynolds said cautiously. I believe that, Lane replied. And that's the problem. There was a long silence. Lane leaned forward. This isn't about me. This is about how fast some of our officers resort to force based on instinct, unchecked, untrained, and unexamined. We've done the work to raise our standards. This proves we haven't done enough. The mayor rubbed his temples. So what do you want to happen? Lane didn't hesitate. I'm not asking for termination. I'm asking for accountability. Public. Transparent. If we pretend this didn't happen just because I wear a badge too, we destroy every ounce of trust we've built in this city. A tense pause. The commissioner sighed. Then we take it public. Lane nodded. He stood up, calm and certain. Let's not wait too long. The community already knows something happened. They deserve the truth. The press conference was announced with less than 12 hours' notice, yet the community center was packed. Cameras lined the back wall. Every local news outlet sent their best anchor. But this wasn't a ceremony. This was damage control. When Deputy Chief Marcus Lane stepped up to the microphone, the room hushed. He wasn't in uniform, just a dark blazer and open collar. His expression was composed, but there was no mistaking the gravity behind his eyes. He didn't read from a statement. He spoke plainly. 2 nights ago, I was stopped by a patrol officer from my own department. What followed was a use of force incident that never should have happened. He paused. Flashes went off. I cooperated fully. I was not aggressive. And yet, I was struck without cause. That officer didn't recognize me, not because of lighting, not because of behavior, but because assumptions were made before facts were gathered. Murmurs swept through the audience. I'm standing here today not as a victim, but as a leader who has a responsibility to confront hard truths. This isn't just about one officer's error. It's about training, awareness, judgment, and how quickly trust can be broken. He looked directly at the cameras. We've opened a full investigation. Officer Hartley is on leave pending review. And no, there won't be a cover-up. The footage will be released to the public within 48 hours. Reporters shot up from their seats, hands raised. Lane held up his palm. I'll take questions in a moment. But I want to be very clear, this department does not excuse misconduct. It doesn't matter if you wear a badge or not. No one is above accountability, including us. In the front row, a community organizer wiped away a tear. Lane stepped back slightly. His message had landed. Now came the fallout. By nightfall, the footage was everywhere. News channels looped the body cam video with expert commentary. Social media exploded with side-by-side screenshots. The calm, respectful posture of Deputy Chief Lane contrasted sharply with the sudden blow from Officer Hartley. The footage was undeniable. And the response from the community came fast. Outside the precinct, crowds gathered, not with anger, but with disappointment. Signs read, "Do better, Eastmont PD." If it happened to him, it could happen to anyone. Accountability is leadership. There were no riots. No vandalism. Just an overwhelming sense of betrayal mixed with hope that Lane's public stand meant real change was possible. Inside the department, tension ran high. Some officers stood behind Hartley, calling it a mistake under pressure. Others avoided defending her at all, afraid to be seen as part of the problem. Megan, confined to her home, watched the footage herself, this time as the world saw it. Her phone buzzed with messages, but none were supportive. One officer texted, "I told you months ago to slow down and read the room. Now the whole city's reading you." Her name was already trending. Not the way she ever imagined. Meanwhile, Deputy Chief Lane received a quiet call from the mayor. "Your words calmed a city," the mayor said. "Let's make sure the actions that follow do the same." Lane didn't answer right away. Then he said, "Words don't fix what trust has already cracked. We've got work to do." And the next morning, the real reform process began. The department's main briefing room had never been so quiet. Rows of uniformed officers sat tense, eyes fixed on the podium. Some shifted uncomfortably, others sat stone still, bracing for what was coming. Deputy Chief Lane stood before them, hands behind his back, not as a victim, but as the second highest ranking officer in the department, and a man with something to say. "I know many of you feel uneasy right now," he began. "Some are angry. Some confused. And some are afraid this incident has painted us all with the same brush." He scanned the room slowly. "Let me make something clear, this isn't about hating officers. It's about asking more of ourselves. Holding the badge to the standard the public expects, and deserves." He took a breath. "This isn't the first time someone's instincts led them wrong. But it's the first time it happened to me. That's why I'm not letting this pass. A few heads turned. Officer Hartley will have her due process. No one's stripping her of that. But from this moment forward, every officer in this department will undergo mandatory retraining on de-escalation, implicit decision-making, and situational awareness. There were groans, sighs. One officer muttered under his breath. Lane heard it. If that sounds inconvenient to you, Lane said, locking eyes with the speaker, then this profession might not be for you anymore. Silence fell again. He continued, we don't earn trust with words. We earn it with action. And the public is watching. As Lane walked off the podium, no one clapped. No one had to. The message had been delivered. 3 weeks had passed since the night that changed everything. Officer Megan Hartley sat stiffly across from 2 internal affairs investigators in a plain, windowless room. No uniform. No badge. Just a notepad, a recorder, and the weight of her decisions. She'd been advised to stay quiet. To follow legal counsel. But now it was time to speak. The lead investigator pressed record and leaned forward. You understand this is a formal interview, and that your statements will be reviewed by the disciplinary board? Yes, Megan said softly. Walk us through the stop, the second investigator said. Megan took a shaky breath. I saw a vehicle speeding. I activated my lights. The driver pulled over immediately. No resistance. I asked for license and registration. Did you recognize the driver? No, she admitted. Not until after I made contact. The investigator raised an eyebrow. What prompted you to ask him to exit the vehicle? I felt something was off. He unbuckled his seatbelt, and I misread the movement. You didn't read the name on the license? Megan looked down. No, and you struck him without any physical threat presented? A long pause. Then, yes. The room was still. Do you believe your actions were appropriate for the situation? She hesitated, then shook her head. No. I don't. I didn't handle it right. And if he hadn't been Deputy Chief Marcus Lane? That question landed hard. I don't know, she whispered. I don't know if it would have ever come to light. They ended the interview shortly after. As Megan stepped out of the room, she realized something chilling. For the first time in her career, she was beginning to see things from the outside in. The disciplinary board convened behind closed doors. A panel of 5, 2 senior officers, 1 civilian liaison, 1 city attorney, and the commissioner himself, reviewed every second of footage, every statement, every policy guideline. The room was silent as the final vote was cast. By afternoon, the decision was official. Megan Hartley received the call while sitting in her car outside her apartment. She already knew the outcome before the words were said. Effective immediately, your employment with the Eastmont Police Department is terminated, the voice said coldly. You will receive written documentation, and your certification will be flagged for review by the state board. She hung up. Stared at the steering wheel. Then finally leaned her head against it and closed her eyes. No badge. No uniform. No more shield to hide behind. Inside the department, the announcement was read aloud in roll call. Reactions were mixed. Some said it was too harsh. Others said it was long overdue. But one thing was clear, the old days, the unspoken rules, the quick assumptions, the look the other way culture, were starting to crack. Deputy Chief Lane didn't gloat. He didn't make another speech. He simply returned to work with more eyes on him than ever before. And that was fine by him. Because real leadership doesn't whisper in silence. It shows up, especially when things go wrong. Weeks turned into months, but the ripple effect from the incident never truly settled. Eastmont had changed, not in loud, dramatic ways, but in slow, steady shifts that mattered. Community forums began filling up. Not with protests, but with honest conversations. Residents who had never trusted the department before began to speak, and this time, they were heard. Bodycam footage became public by default, not just by pressure. Traffic stops were audited quarterly. And a new civilian oversight panel, long delayed, was finally implemented. In schools, young men who once feared every flashing light started asking real questions about law, procedure, and reform. And at roll call each morning, officers now wore not just bodycams, but the understanding that accountability wasn't optional anymore. As for Deputy Chief Lane, his presence became more than symbolic. He didn't hide behind titles or protocols. He attended every oversight meeting. Walked every neighborhood. And one quiet Thursday afternoon, during a youth mentorship program, a teenager raised his hand and asked, "Sir, how did it feel when one of your own treated you like a stranger?" Lane paused. "It reminded me," he said, "that the job isn't just about what we carry on our belts, it's about what we carry in our hearts. And if we forget that, even for a second, we fail the people we swore to protect." The room went still. He wasn't just talking about that night. He was talking about everything after. A year later, few remembered Officer Megan Hartley's name, but everyone remembered what she'd done. Not out of vengeance, but as a turning point. The night she struck the wrong man for the wrong reasons became a case study in every Eastmont Police Academy class. Cadets were required to analyze the footage and submit written reflections. Deputy Chief Marcus Lane stood quietly at the back of the room each year, watching their reactions. Not to shame them, but to remind them. One evening, after class, a young recruit approached him. Nervous. Honest. "Sir, I used to think the badge meant I was supposed to be in control. But after that video, I think it means I'm supposed to stay accountable, even when I don't feel in control." Lane nodded. "Then you understand the job better than most who've worn it for decades." Outside the department, Eastmont changed too. Civilian police trust didn't skyrocket overnight, but it grew, incrementally, authentically. No more empty slogans. Just slow, earned progress. And as for Lane, he never used that moment for personal gain. He never ran for office. Never wrote a memoir. But across the city, people knew who he was, not because he held power, but because he refused to misuse it. And sometimes, that's the most powerful kind of leadership there is.